I was hoping he'd keep singing so it shortened my time up here, but praise the Lord for the rain. Praise the Lord, amen. It's great to see the youth on the front row. I'm used to coming and they're on the very back row, so that's a delight right there. So again, how many of you think that crime in the nation is on a rise? Raise a hand if you think crime in the nation is on the rise. How many do you think crime in San Angelo is on the rise? Raise your hand. Anybody here think it's on a decrease in San Angelo? I asked that question because we'll cover it in the PowerPoint forthcoming. I've got a PowerPoint here. I'm going to breeze through it real fast. It's basically got some updates of what we've been doing in the police department and also some stats. I'll run through it very quickly. My time is limited. I'd like to hear from you what your question concerns are. So when we finish up here, and at any time in the presentation, if you got a question, raise your hand. And very informal here. Dating back to the early 1900s when SAPD was established. Assumed civil service in 1947, the chief of police an elected position. I'm on my second term right now. I've served just a little over 5 years as chief of police. Each term is 4 years. In my administration as chief of police as elected official, I can appoint any two persons in the police department that I want. The two persons that I appointed were both lieutenants at the time. Assistant Chief David Howard, Support Services, Assistant Chief Fincher, Operations. We have 7 lieutenants, which is considered our command staff. Lieutenant Les Bird in Narcotics, Lieutenant Mike Hernandez in Criminal Investigations, Lieutenant Tim Pucci in Communications, Brian Robinson in Training, Chris Chimino on Patrol, Mid-Shift, Adam Scott, Day Shift Patrol, and Craig Thomason, Night Shift Patrol. We're authorized by City Council 180 officers. Currently, we have 166 sworn officers. We just swore in 11 cadets July 12th. We're currently recruiting and putting out applications for another test on July 20th, civil service examination. 7 senior officers recently retired, and we expect more to retire soon. FBI recommendations 1.79 officers per 1,000 citizens. That's 190 authorized police officer positions. I just said we're 166, but if you add the cadets, we're 176, but we're still understaffed what FBI recommendations are here in San Angelo, Texas. International Association of Police Chiefs, 1.9. That puts us at 202 authorized police officers. Again, we're authorized by City Council at 180. Lubbock PD, 487 officers with a population of 252,000. That's 1.9 officers per 1,000 residents. Midland, 234. That's 1.74. Odessa, 182 at a 1.54. They're actually lower than us and the only one up there. And Abilene PD's at 216 at a 1.77. And San Angelo is 169 if we have 180 officers. Patrol is considered the critical, essential service, the backbone of the police department. They work 24/7, 365. There's 3 different shifts. We got a day shift, A and B, 5:45 a.m. to 5:45 p.m. Evening C and D, 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. And a night 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Our busiest call time is in the evening time, so we got 2 shifts that overlap there. So our manpower is the strongest. Patrol allocation and tactics. In 2016, we took office. We transitioned from a 10-hour shift to a 12-hour shift. This change alone added 3 to 4 bodies per shift without adding manpower. Under this new configuration, officers work 4 on, 3 off, basically 4 on, 15 days out of the month. Those 12-hour shifts are very long for them, especially on their 4-day tour. But it's rewarding when you're off. When you got those 4 days, you throw a couple of vacation days in there. It results in more time with their family, less sick time usage. In fact, we reduced the overtime with sick time in 2019. Expenditures, we had $534,000 in overtime costs. We cut that to $379,000, which is significant with my budget. Calls for service, 2018, 99,000. 2019, 91,000. 2020, 100,000 calls for service. We're tracking right now, that's January through May, we're tracking to be just over 100,000 calls for service in the city of San Angelo that our dispatch and our police officers answer. Top call, domestic violence. 2018, 3,355 calls. 2020, 3,605 calls for just family violence calls alone. And again, those are partials just for 2021. These are the arrests for both misdemeanor and felonies. Totals, 3937 in 2018. 2019, 5,588 people were arrested in San Angelo, Texas by SAPD alone. They don't count DPS. They don't count the Sheriff's Department. We're tracking at 1,887, which is going to be very close to a 2019 total. We created an anti-crime unit. The majority of the people that commit crime are the same population of people. The same 10% of the people. It's a revolving door. It's very frustrating for law enforcement. But we saw an increase in property crime, so we created a unit that's basically undercover. They work at night in undercover vehicles, and they focus on burglary, theft, and robbery, and our repeat offenders. We merged narcotics and gangs. We increased the number of detectives from 3 to 6 in the narcotic division. That change is a force multiplier in combating our drug-related crimes, as well as addressing specific street-level crime and violent crime problems within the city. Street Crimes Division, 2018, 106 of the 476 felony cases were filed by street crimes alone. That 476 is total in SAPD. 16 of the 893 misdemeanor cases were filed by street crimes. 2019, 82 of the 388 were by street crimes, felony cases, and 26 of the 698 misdemeanors were filed by street crimes. In 2020, 31 of the 475 felony cases were filed by street crimes, and 11 out of 1,161. From 1/20/21 to 5/31, that's basically this year, 589 narcotic arrests, 373 misdemeanors, and 216 felony arrests. This right here is the biggest problem in San Angelo. And not only here, it's nationwide. The majority of these narcotics are coming from the border across Mexico. We do have a canine unit. We have 4 canines. This is just some stats. I'm not going to read them all off. You can read. I want to go through this very quickly so we can open it up. But you'll notice a trend there that methamphetamine is the largest seizure that we got, not only here through canine, but through our street crime section and also on the street. Traffic enforcement. Stats on crashes and fatalities. 2018, we had 5 fatal crashes involving 7 persons. Jump down to 2021, we have 3 fatal crashes involving 5 persons to date. Citations issued. 2018, 23,400 citations, 10,000 warnings. 2021, we've done 66 real citation and 4,000 warnings. We're tracking to be about on 2019 stats. If you'll notice, 2020 jumped down. That was due to COVID. We retract on some of the things that we did during COVID. DWIs, 2019, under 21, driving while intoxicated arrests in 2019, 234 offenders, 2020, 276, and right now we're at 149. Intoxicated assault arrest, 1 and 0 for 2021. Manslaughter, 2019, 2, and 2020, and 2021 1. Community services conducted 257 crime prevention programs, contacting 17,945 citizens. In 2020, we conducted 61 crime prevention programs, contacting 1,500 citizens. To date, in 2021, the Community Services Division has conducted 18 crime prevention programs, contacting 755 citizens. Safe exchange zone, there's 2 places up at the police department headquarters that are monitored with a camera 24/7. We put those up there for folks that want to go up there, child custody situations, or if you're buying stuff online, eBay or whatever the case may be, swapping sales, and that is monitored 24/7 up there, those 2 parking spaces, anytime. Recruiting, manpower, and retention. We streamlined the recruiting and hiring process, cutting it down from 6 to 3 months. With the city manager approval, we can hire 5% over our authorized strength of 180 that's set by city council. It is essential we have competitive wages and benefit package to recruit people to work at our department. That's more crucial now than it is ever. Law enforcement applications are down 60% nationwide right now. Anybody know why that is? Self-explanatory. I think everybody can figure that out. The environment we're working in. New police headquarters. Police administration is currently working with the city council and city staff to move the police department headquarters from its current location to the city hall annex. When I took over, that was a planned location or possibility, the old bank building where the city annex is right now, but they already had an architect, and when I met with them, the building fee for brand new was $42 million that the architect had. To remodel was $38 million. At that time, there was no way that was going to be affordable by the city. And I had some other priorities, which was adding manpower and competitive pay, so that's what I started addressing first, and that price tag was too big. This relocation to the police headquarters will bring all the police department personnel together, with the exception of the training academy, staff, and dispatch. That's scheduled to occur possibly within 1 to 2 years. The city is actually looking at purchasing the old Standard Times building to move the city staff that's in the annex now over to the Standard Times, and we'll relocate with minimal remodeling in the annex building. Body-worn cameras. All officers are currently assigned body-worn cameras. This was very important to me. I'm very thankful that council passed this. It was $1.7 million 2 years ago, but it's very beneficial not only to the officer, but to the person the officer deals with. I believe it shows transparency, and I'm not going to read every bit of that. I'll leave it up there if y'all want to read some of that for a moment. We do have a drone program we started 2 years ago. We got 2 unmanned drones, 2 pilots, 2 drones. Not only do they go out there and search for folks that have run from the vehicle, but they also map out serious accident locations. They've got mapping facilities, and we actually recently caught a guy down on the river. It's pretty neat watching the videos of all that. Drone stats, I'm not going to read them all. Reestablished the Explorer program. Young men and women who have completed the 8th grade and up to 20 years old of age. Due to COVID, we were kind of set back. The program was suspended. SAPD officers, volunteers, advisors to work with those participating in the Explorer program. Explorer advisors are currently working with explorers to train them in basic law enforcement tasks and prepare them to complete in Explorer competitions in 2022. revitalizing volunteers and police work, increase manpower on patrol, disabled parking, enforcement, traffic control, and graffiti abatement, and 24-hour notices. We've got a handful of folks that are retired, and they go out and that's what they do, and they take that serious. I think some of these folks do more work than my full-time officers, and they don't get paid to do it, and they take it very seriously. They're out there every day at Walmart, HEBs, and that's all they do is look for handicap parking violations. That's just an overtime comparison. Our overtime and the cuts that were made in 2016, the department had 14,000 hours in overtime paid. In 2016, reduced the number of overtime hours by an average of 3,500 hours. Budget goals. For the last several years, we've been awarded grants, applied and rewarded grants for $435,000. So we have a claybird chute that we started in 2019 that's split between us and the Sheriff's Department. 2019, we received $27,000 in funds. 2020, we received $20,000. In 2021, $25,000. 2019, we bought 6-hour pistols for the entire department. In 2020, gym equipment. In 2021, yet to be determined what we spend that money on. SAPD Part 1 offenses. 2015, we were up 7%. 2016, we were up 19%. I will say with that jump, I think that part of that, we switched over computer systems that could have had some weight in that. 2017, we dropped 8%. 2018, 18%. 2019, 6%. 2020, 9%. And we're tracking 2021 year-to-date 13% decrease. Part 1 is serious crimes. Murder, robbery, aggravated robbery. Across the nation, it's trended that Part 1 crimes, major crimes, are on the increase. And some of our categories, they are here, aggravated assaults. But overall, when you add property crimes, Part 1 crimes, property crimes, burglary, stolen vehicles, unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, we're down. And those are comparison year by year. So if we were 8% down in 2017, we're even 18% lower than that 8% the next year. So the moral of the story is we're actually down in crime other than some categories in some violent areas. You can read that. Anyway, I ran through that very quickly for a purpose. I want to hear from you and any questions that you may have, any concern that you may have.
Let me start with the first question. That is, you talked about street crimes. I'm assuming that's Scott Allen on his moped. It's a motorcycle, I'm sorry. On his scooter? No, what is street crimes when you say that? Because that sounds...
It's just a name for narcotics unit.
A name for narcotics unit. Okay. I'm learning. All right, let's start with you guys. What do you got? I'll get you in a second, Gene, because I know you're going to ask a bunch.
Chief, is it possible to know what the root cause is of the narcotics? Is there anything we can do to affect that working with the police department? How do we help?
The root cause of narcotics?
Well, you said that was the increase. What's driving that?
You know, that's a tough question. There's always been users here, and there'll always be. And most of that is what is attributed to the theft and burglaries that are occurring today. The best thing I can tell you as an individual, and I'm sure most of you have, is ring cameras. Get the cameras. We solve a lot of crimes by that. You know, the biggest one is methamphetamine. And While you're out there doing your job, they're out there doing their job, and that's to steal. They don't have a job. That's what they do. And it's a continuing cycle, which is very disappointing with us, with police officers. We'll throw them in jail for possession, small amount, and they'll be out the next day. It's unfortunate, but our jail system's not equipped to hold every person that we arrest. I mean, we'll arrest 20. You saw the numbers. I mean, you can't keep them all. So anyway, with that being said, all that stuff is coming across the Mexico border, and it's so cheap now. We're seeing very limited amounts of cocaine, very limited amounts of marijuana, especially Mexican marijuana. Now, the hydroponic and more potent stuff we're seeing, but not near as much as methamphetamine. When I was a patrol officer, every 4 stops that I made, I'd get a bag of marijuana. Not today's time. It's a bag of meth. And a lot of times it's not a small quantity, even for a user. It's ounce bags for a user because it's so cheap and easily to come by.
I just want to say thanks for recovering my pickup in less than 48 hours.
Thank you.
The address?
With the current way things have been going and observing, like the case in Minnesota with the officer and that methodology that he supposedly used with the Floyd guy and his death, my question would be, have we seen any activity of the Black Lives Matter and Antifa, I believe is how you pronounce it? Is there any activity in our area? Is there any concern for this community in relationship to that? And as the officers deal with different, do they use that methodology that was used there or not?
Right after that happened, we had a BLM march. There was no violence. We had security there. In fact, it was our ideal to close down the streets. They were going to do it anyway. They didn't come to us. We went to them. But I feel like we have a very strong relationship. Not that one incident can't set us back. That's why we continue every day, every week to work on relationship with different groups in our community. One incident can set us back just like it did up north with George Floyd. Those folks are here, not only them, but there's other folks that just don't like law enforcement no matter what we do. If we're perfect or if we're made a mistake, they're present. We can only continue to work on our relationships and do the best we can. But there's no threat as far as what you're talking about there. There's been a lot of policy change that come out since the Floyd incident through the T-close as far as chokeholds and different things that we've implemented in our policy. So, anyway.
Somebody else. Where are you pointing? Where? Oh, David. He's scratching his head. Good thing this wasn't an auction. Sold. So you mentioned in there, as you were talking about community services and programs that have been presented and how that's explain that part to us. What are those programs? Because there was a high number that were presented, you said.
As far as community services?
Yeah.
We have a range of programs. I mean, if you own a business, you can call us up and say, I want a security inspection. We'll come out there and analyze your business and tell you what we think you need as far as extra lighting or cut the hedges here and put lighting up here or alarm systems or whatever it may be. That's just one of the things. We do the etching, we go out, we do fingerprinting with the kids, National Night Out, a host of different things that we do to connect with the community. So, yes, sir.
Can you repeat what he said? We didn't hear it back here.
Believe it or not, that's a big thing. Another big thing is remove the valuables from your vehicle, especially guns, and lock your vehicle. We continue to preach that over and over. We've got a group of individuals, these younger kids between 13 and 20 years old, considered gang members. That's all they're doing is going and targeting vehicles, walking blocks, checking door handles. And once they get inside, they'll rummage your vehicle looking for a gun. That's it. Those guns are turned into drive-by shootings. There ain't a day go by that I see a crime report every day that several people had their guns stolen. 90% of the vehicle burglaries in San Angelo, the vehicle is unlocked. Very seldom do we have a string where they bust out the window. They're unlocked. 90% of the vehicles stolen are unlocked with the keys in the vehicle. We can't help you there. So. I know that sounds small. It's basic, but that's big for us. It would cut crime tremendously. So.
Do we have a lot of gang activities, gangs in San Angelo, like some of the larger cities do?
It's here. Probably when the most of you think of gangs, you're probably thinking prisons and, tattoos everywhere and stuff like that, gangland, what you've seen on TV. But the majority of our activity is between a 13-year-old and a 20-year-old. And a lot of that resorts back to the household, parenting. They don't have what they need at home, so they're trying to get that bond with their friends. And that goes back to what I told you about these vehicle burglaries and drive-by shootings. Furthermore, they don't know the consequences to their actions at 15 years old. Pulling a gun, there's a lot of them that'll just pull a gun these days and shoot you and won't even think twice about it. And it's very unfortunate. We do have prison gangs here. We do have older, but for the most part, believe it or not, they try to stay under the radar. They don't want no involvement. They don't want us to know about them. They are here. The Mexican Mafia, Texas Syndicate, they're all here. But for the most part, we don't have many problems out of them. It's these younger generations, these kiddos that are causing the problems.
Did I understand this right? The open border with Mexico is causing an increase in drugs or something else?
We haven't experienced any other problems here as far as immigration here in San Angelo. Now, I do see the stories surrounding counties not far from here where they are having some problems. But as far as in San Angelo, as far as immigration or, us getting in chases and everything else like that, we haven't experienced that yet. But the drugs, it's terrible. And that's what's all the murders that basically we're experiencing is all connected to either domestic violence or drugs. So, thus far, we've been fairly fortunate as far as what I've seen from the border cities and some of our surrounding counties.
So you listed the stats about domestic violence, and it equates to about almost 10 calls a day when you do the math on that. How do we rank kind of across the state or even across the nation as far as the domestic violence in San Angelo?
That's the number one call nationwide. It's not just San Angelo, Texas. That's also the number one call when police officers get shot and killed. So that's nationwide. I look at the stats. I actually watch the stats with some of the communities around here, not only with family violence, but murders and everything else, and see if we're tracking the same. But that's nationwide. And family violence call, some of those could have been as little as an argument. It's still documented as a family violence. It may not actually been an assault occur, but that's tracking along nationwide. So, yes, sir.
Where?
Fell
Oh,
off. Why?
On the narcotics usage arrest, are you seeing the age of those arrests, getting younger? The people getting younger?
The question was on the narcotic arrest, do we see the offender getting younger? That hasn't really changed that much from when I started, although surprisingly enough, we make calls where there's fourth graders that have bags of methamphetamine. Fourth graders, fifth graders. Not all the time, but it does happen. And, their parents become complacent. They see what their parents doing. They think it's cool, so they take it and go to school with it. But no, the average age is still kind of remained the same. The majority is between 17 and 30 years old.
somebody else? Oh, okay.
What is the city policy concerning those that like to panhandle on the different corners, whether it's Walmart or down at Bryant Thruway? They've been camping down there again. I noticed an officer has run some of them out, but they seem to be collecting, especially around Oak Street overpass there on the Houston Heart. What is the city policy? Are they required to if they're going to panhandle, do they have to register with the police department and what have you?
About 4 years ago, they did. They had to come down and get a sales permit, a door-to-door. In other words, somebody coming to your door to sell a permit, they're supposed to have a permit. They come down to the police department, get registered. Our city legal deemed that unconstitutional. So, with that being said, several years ago, we instituted a no camping policy on city property, which basically was 10 p.m. at night till 6 a.m. in the morning. When they closed the shelter down, Salvation Army, we could no longer enforce that policy because there's no shelter available for them to go to. Now, I will say recently, as of about 4 months ago, the city passed or has a policy now that council passed that you can't stand, walk, you can walk, but you can't stand or be under the bridge anywhere along Loop 306. So that kind of helped where you're talking about at 7th and Chadbourne was our biggest problem underneath the overpass there. We're constantly running them off, constantly. They can't get out on the island with a sign because that's considered a roadway and it's actually a traffic violation. But you go down through there, you give them a ticket, they don't care. I mean, they don't pay the fine. They'll go to jail, set their time, and it's just a continuing cycle. I will say that it's got better than it was. If any of y'all noticed 6 or 8 months ago, all the trash down there, there'd be 10 or 15 homeless people down there at a time. It's not as bad as it was, but we continue. That's a daily deal to address that, whether it be 7th and Chadbourne or 7th and Oaks, but the biggest problem was at 7th and Chadbourne. So there's nothing that we can really do. If they get out there in the median, that is a violation. That's considered part of the roadway. They can panhandle. That's a freedom of speech. It's against the law to say no panhandling in San Angelo, Texas. It's against the law. It's a form of freedom of speech. But once they step in the roadway to collect that donation, they violated the law.
So the shelter closed several years ago at the Salvation Army, and we don't really have any kind of a facility like that. Has there been an increase in our homeless population, or is it maintained kind of a steady number?
Actually, I think right now there's been a decrease since the shelter is not operational. I think that a portion of them have left. So I've been told I don't see as many of them downtown. I'm patrolling every day myself. I don't see near the numbers. We do have a tent city right now. It's not visible like it was between 6th and 7th Street down there by Central High School, but there's one right now in San Angelo, Texas. It's Like I said, they can panhandle long, they don't get in the roadway. There's no city ordinance against it.
Just shows a great need in our community, obviously.
I'm sorry?
I said that obviously exposes a great need in our community.
Yeah.
So. Other questions?
Come on,
Here's one.
you youngsters gotta have something.
On,
I saw that. Yes, sir.
Well, on a lighter note, I was wondering, do y'all ever have any dumb criminal type stories?
We already led with Scott.
There's plenty of those.
I'd just like to ask, what is it, or what is needed most from faith organizations and churches in the city? What service could we provide, or how could we help support the police department, or anything like that?
You know, pray for us. I mean, it's trying times right now. It was difficult when I started, but it's even more difficult now. It's very difficult. You know, you see an officer out there, you won't believe what it means to that officer just for somebody to come up and say, thank you for what you're doing. That's it, just something simple right now. It's a very difficult time. A lot of these officers don't want to get out and do anything. They're in fear that if I get out and do something, what if I put myself in that situation that I have to shoot somebody and I'm going to be the one, you know, that they're looking at. You know, that they're going to prosecute me. You know, it's a difficult time, you know, and it's only going to get worse. I just mentioned earlier that law enforcement in general, the applications are down 60% nationwide. When I applied, there was probably 200 people back in 1992, 200 something applicants that went to take the test. There was 82 on the list. 82 on the list. I was 41. So I'm a 50%er. I was never good, just kind of medium. Today we might have 50. When we called down through there, we had 15 people go to the oral board. That's it. And it's only going to get worse. And one day we're going to wake up and there's not going to be people here to do this job based on the pay and based on what you go through. You know, it's terrible. There's not a day go by that you don't flip on social media, you don't flip on the news, that an officer has been shot and killed doing his job. And it's pretty bad when that officer is going to try to help somebody that is broke down, and that person shoots the officer and kills him. It's terrible. Anyway, pray for the officer. Tell him thank you, you know. I know it sounds basic, but it's very important right now.
So along those lines and wanting to establish relationships with the policemen, it seems like I remember we used to have breakfasts with y'all. They would, like once a quarter or something, you could go have breakfast somewhere?
We were doing once a quarter coffee with a cop at different locations. We kind of got away from that due to COVID. Now everything's kind of opened back up, so we'll probably get back into that. Majority of location, well, several times was at the Cactus, but we kind of spread it around different areas. I know we did McDonald's up there on North Bryan, a few other locations, so we'll get back to that.
A number of years ago, you all used to sponsor a program of education for citizens of San Angelo, and I can't remember exactly how it unfolded, but my husband did attend, and you had educational classes over a period of time for citizens, and then I think on the last night they were able to actually be in a patrol car with the officer. Is that still going on or not?
That's called the Citizens Police Academy. And again, that's one of those COVID deals, and we'll get back into. We usually do it once or twice a year. when we get enough applicants, they go through a background check, and I think it's 16 weeks where you meet on a Tuesday, and various officers from various different places in the department come explain what they do and how they do it, and then you do a ride-along. And once you completed that, you can actually enter into our VIP program, volunteer program. So yes, we'll get back to that.
Well, Chief, I really appreciate you being here, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you.